We're getting ready to get started here. Ready? There's a bunch right there.
Oh, there. Okay, thank you. I didn't say that.
All right.
Things are dropping.
Mr. President.
Welcome to the December meeting.
Yay!
If you got your toys, get them out there if you haven't already. If you got your potluck lunch, get it out there already. And right now, listen to Drew. Thank you.
All right. So, hi everybody. Happy holidays.
Hi, Drew.
This is probably arguably the easiest pair of months for me as the Grand Hydro because everybody expects me to do holiday beers. So, who am I to argue with you guys sometimes? You know, sometimes I like to screw with you, but today I'm actually going to do the right thing. And we're actually going to do something a little different. We're going to do Belgian holiday styles, but most of these are going to be American versions. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versions. Only one of them actually Belgian. The rest are North American. Now, part of the reason why I don't mind doing holiday beers is it always gives me a good excuse to always pour my favorite beer. Because, let's face it, my favorite beer is Avec le Bon Vue from Brasserie DuPont. So, Avec le Bon Vue, for those of you who don't know, it's the best wishes, or with the best wishes, and it's basically with the best wishes of the brewery, because Avec le Bon Vue de la Brasserie, that's about as close to French as I can get. And what this started out with is DuPont wanted to do a beer to reward its customers, its workers, the people that it knew, the family, friends. And they had their basic saison. So both saison, the saison that we know, the veal provision, and also Monette. But they decided to do something a little extra special for winter as a Christmas gift. And so they created this beer, which in a lot of ways is the progenitor of what we think of as the Super Saison style, which is where I spent a lot of time playing around. Yeah, Super Saison, so anything that's in the stronger, non-table strength or not above 5% area, usually you'll find these in the 7 to 10 range. So Avec le Bon Vue is really the hearkener of this. It's also, to my mind, one of the best hoppy Belgian beers that's out there. I really enjoy it. Thank you, Eddie, for freaking me out by showing me myself.
That's scary.
Yeah, well, this is the one problem with being on the internet. You got some smart ass who goes, "Oh, hey, look, I can show Drew himself." But for years, Avec le Bon Vue was probably the hoppiest thing you could get out of Belgium. Between that or Duranca XX Bitter. To me, this was always much better. And for a long time, when people started to try to do the idea of Belgian IPA, they were playing around with doing a lot of very exclusive American-style hops, and it didn't really work because I think you get a real conflict between the esters and phenols that you get out of Belgian yeast and the American hop characters, those piney, citrus, dank characters. Avec le Bon Vue has always done it right because it's a lot of classically noble hops in it. From what I remember in visiting the brewery, I saw a lot of Wide Target, a lot of Styrian, and some Zots in the brewery. So I kind of imagine that sort of blend. All right, any comments?
Yeah, I have a little cheesy note in aroma, but I would eat that cheese.
Well, now one of the biggest changes, by the way, if you notice, Jimbo, can I have a bottle? If you'll notice, the bottle for DuPont now is brown.
Yeah.
They made this change, I think, about a year ago. And now they're in brown bottles instead of green bottles, which is wonderful because it always used to be a crapshoot when you go to buy something like Avec le Bon Vue. It was whether or not you're going to get a bottle that was completely skunked out. And I usually would say it was about a 50-50 chance. Now that they've switched up to the brown bottles, that's less likely to happen, so yay. And apparently somebody did ask the brewery managers, hey, so bottles, why the switch to brown? They're like, well, the skunk character was never something that we intended. It wasn't what we wanted to have in the beer, so they switched to the brown bottles.
Is this a little big for a Saison normally, 9.5%?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing that kicked off the whole Super Saison, the Cat S Saison. So in Belgium, beer's taxed into different categories, so most of the time you'll hear, if you hear something about a strong beer, I think it's Cat S is the taxation category for it. That's about as close as the Belgians normally get to style. And so, yeah, this was the thing that kicked off the Super Saison thing. I think this is the late 60s. early 70s when this started. So, comments. So we got a little bit of cheesiness,
I get
but
sweet apple, not acetaldehyde in this.
yep. Some nice fruitiness. There's a definite like low grassy hop character that runs through the whole thing, which is nice. Very firm bitterness, but not like American IPA style bitterness where that's the only thing you get when you drink the beer, right?
It's got a more velvety mouth feel.
Oh yeah, very fluffy.
Yeah.
Carbonation.
The carbonation and also probably a little bit of wheat in here to kind of give it that little just extra. Yeah. Well, I've told you guys before. Last month when we had the Fantôme, to me one of the things that really drew me to things like Fantôme was the first time I had it, poured it into the glass, put it into my tongue, and the beer was so effervescent and so sort of fluffy in the body and the mouthfeel that it just disappeared when it hit the heat of your tongue. It was kind of a cool effect. This has some of that same thing. And it also does a very nice job of making sure that you know, hi, you feel warm now.
This is wonderful.
Hey, why does it have a Roman numeral 3 on the label?
All right, well, because the classic DuPont line, you have Saison DuPont 1, Saison DuPont 2, which is Monette. Un is veal provision, and so this is Saison DuPont 3. This is Saison DuPont 3 avec le bambou de la brasserie. So one of the best Christmas gifts to ever come out, and eventually, obviously, since we can get it here year-round, it became a year-round thing. So, any other comments about the fact that I get to pour my favorite beer every December?
Yay!
If I want. Did anybody really not like the avec le bambou? All right, you're no longer friends.
It's not
No
as
longer friends. Hey, that's
it's not as saison-y as a lot of the farmhouse saisons are.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that real quick because that's a pet peeve of mine. You get a lot of people now who are doing saisons, which is a wonderful thing, and they're going, oh, but these aren't, but this isn't very farmhousey, and where's the bread? Saison as a style really exists in sort of two worlds. There's the fanciful legendary world of the farmhouse beers and this sort of great notion of barrels of beer aging in somebody's farmhouse to be fed to the workers. Near as anybody can tell, anything like that being called Saison is a giant crock of shit. Things being done called Saison, when you can find them and not really in the records of like the clerk, those were being done in little village breweries. So they would have had a little Brett character to them, but the Saison as we know it in reality is this style as really established and defined and outlined by DuPont. So that's the reason why, like, when people started to get all grumpy with the new BJSP guidelines saying no Brett character, my argument about it was there really should be a... Everybody on the internet just got nauseous. Kevin's big fat ass.
sorry, not all of us can lose as much weight as you.
All right, but so DuPont really defines the style for me. I think the BJCP really would have been wise to have a wild ale / farmhouse category along with Saison to recognize the reality of Saison versus the story that everybody's bought into. My problem with a lot of Saisons that people are doing, particularly here in the U.S. that are Brett forward, is they're more Brett beers than they are Saison beers. Yeah, to the point where the Brett dominates everything about the beer, and that's fine if that's what you want. But if somebody's telling me, hey, I've got a Saison, I want a Saison, not a Brett beer. So that's me. All right. So next up, the Mission Holiday Ale. Mission down in San Diego. They've been around for a few years now. Belgian-style dark ale, 8.6% alcohol. They're another reason to like the holiday ales. They're usually fairly big unless you're doing the English ones. So this Belgian-style dark ale delivers the promise of the holidays, both indulgent and delicious. Dark, rich, and smooth, this ale is sure to delight the senses. Complex aromas of raisin, plum, and fig with light Belgian-style spiciness. Mission Holiday Ale proves to be an indulgent treat for the holiday season. Here for a limited time, give a little, keep a little. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, Belgian Dark. Very common playground for this sort of style. Kevin, can I get a little more?
Yep.
Yeah, short for me, buddy. Thanks. All right. Let's see what we get. All right, usually you think with a Belgian-style Belgian-style strong dark ale, and Jesus, people, that's way too many words. Belgian dark ales. You want to see a lot of these kind of caramelly malt tones to it, kind of brown sugar and raisin, a fair amount of cinnamon and nutmeg type spices, hopefully usually yeast driven and not necessarily kettle driven. The best ones will give you that spiciness but won't overwhelm your palate. And when you get down to the finish of the beer, it shouldn't be sweet, it should be dry. And there should usually be a nice effervescent character to kind of help drive that finish. All right, so
Is that pretty good?
now I've said all this without tasting the beer, so
Okay, this does do exactly pretty much what you said.
all right, and they've got
You're close enough.
well, and
That sounds
the
pretty good.
well, but remember it's a Belgian style ale. There a lot of them are going to be thin. What I do know that's interesting is in the aroma. The first thing I'm noticing is that sort of plummy butter note that I get out of the Unibrew beers, which almost makes me wonder if they're not using that strain. But
No, the diacetyl for that.
no. We'll have a Unibrew beer in a moment. I always get a very strong plum and a very strong sort of buttered nut type aroma out of those beers.
Nice warming character.
They always come off pretty sharp, kind of sharp, bite to them.
All right. So start. We got some richness in the malt, but that kind of goes away really quick, like a brown sugary type thing. Definitely getting an anise note, so that licoricey note, which is not unusual. Yeah, chocolate and cocoa powder.
Those are two. Get the cocoa powder.
A little bit of raisin type character. So that's probably some special bee or Belgian dark candy syrup in there.
I think you did a good job on this.
Yeah, I mean it's a decently done ale. I don't think it makes me go, I want to have more, but I still think one thing American brewers are definitely learning is the lesson of, hey, don't leave your Belgian beers too sweet. So all right, real quick show of hands. Any other comments about the mission before we do the show of hands?
Well, there's a little spice in it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not much. I mean. It's,
Well, this is the other nice thing is that American brewers are also learning. Hey, don't dump the cabinet in there.
It's a Belgian dark, but I get a little.
It's got the
little
phenolics.
holiday spice in there.
It's got the phenolics in there, believe me.
It could be
Bruce has got a comment on that.
Yeah, Bruce. Right. Yeah, it kind of starts with that richness and it kind of hangs in there for a long period of time. But yeah, you're right. It's a little bit of that sort of Marmite, Vegemite type
Yeah, it's kind of a dry
coating.
that sort of obscures the finish.
Yep. All right. Any other comments? All right, quick show of hands. How many people prefer the Avec le Bon Vue so far? All right. How many people like the Mission Holiday the best? All right. How many people who like the Mission Holiday the best don't like Saisons? All right. Just a few of you haters.
Just check it.
All right. Adding to the list of people I no longer have to talk to. All right. All right. So next up we have a new LA Holiday Ale, the Monkish Magnificat. This is they just released this, and I want to make sure to send a special shout out. He may be watching right now. Roberto Hernandez of the Monrovia Homebrew Shop was actually down in Carson when I sent out that call for, hey, is anybody down here can pick up a couple bottles for us? And so he did, because he said, hey, I was in Carson and I needed an excuse to go to a brewery anyway. So thanks to Roberto for grabbing us those beers. He just dropped them off to me this morning.
Nice.
So hopefully the temperatures are okay and we have this. And I have no information about the beer other than Belgian dark ale with spices as a holiday thing.
No, that's fine.
So now here's the thing. How many of you have been to Monkish before? How many of you ever had Monkish beers? How many of you, this is your first experience with Monkish at all? All right. Now, Monkish is down in Torrance, and they're right in what is really sort of the Torrance triangle of craft breweries now. LA is starting to get downtown LA is starting to get a little connection there. Kale can tell you all about it. But Torrance really over the past couple of years has really grown up a brewing scene. There's at least 6 or 7 breweries down there now. I mean, I'm losing track. And Monkish was one of the first. Monkish was started by Henry Nguyen and his family, and they're doing some really interesting Belgian-inspired beers with interesting flair added to it from their Asian background. So you'll get things with hibiscus, you'll get things with Szechuan peppercorns, you'll get things with some slightly different flavors to them. And I've always been really appreciative of what they do and how they play. So, first thing is, yeah, here, somebody give me a ball. All right, so there's the Monkish Magnificat. This is their regular version. This is not the barrel-aged version. I decided I'd rather pour for us the regular so we get that without the bourbon barrel stuff. But yeah, my first note is, wow, this smells very, very, very much like a holiday fruitcake. But
It's really nice. Drew, I get a lot of diacetyl on the nose and then the flavor. And as Steve just pointed out, a lot of the phenolics are covering it, but it's very pleasant to me.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't get the diacetyl. So, all right, guys, real quick. So, John and Steve over here are saying that they get a fair amount of diacetyl as like a butterscotch type character, but the spicing is really covering it up. Now, Dana has a very good point. You were saying 5 to 6 years, right? Now, here's the thing. For those of us who have been doing the craft beer thing for a good long while, we all remember the days when you would go and buy Anchor Our Holiday Ale, or as everybody colloquially knows it, Anchor Christmas, and go buy those bottles and put them away for at least a year, possibly longer, in order to give them some time to really kind of chill out and smooth out and become a thing.
All right, I'm going to take it back on the second pour I just had. The first pour with a different bottle was diacetyl. This one didn't have it.
Okay. Well, no, yeah. Well, here's the problem. Kevin's been running outside and eating popcorn. All right.
There you go.
Yeah. Let me get a touch more
Has he
of
been
that.
mixing it for everybody too?
All right. So. Woo-hoo. Yeah. Okay. So 10.1%. I would have said that this was around 9. I don't think I would have gone up into the 10s on it, but this is a pretty tasty little treat, and I totally think this is the kind of beer that will definitely benefit from some age. I would highly suggest, if you see this on the shelves, or if you go down to the brewery itself, again down in Torrance, and there's like 3 breweries within stumbling distance of the brewery. No, it's not even stumbling distance. You can crawl and not get a scuffing on your knees. Go pick some of this up, throw it into the cellar, forget about it, and come back to it in a little bit. I think it'll be great.
Do you think that the spicing will mellow with age?
I like the beer.
Yeah. So the question from Steve is, do I think?
Hops,
Yeah. Do I think that the spicing will mellow with age? I definitely do. Again, I think it's straight out of the Anchor Christmas Ale story where, how old are some of the bottles that we've had at the sandwich before? Like 20, 30 years?
Yeah, 2 years ago we had a 20-year-old
Right.
Christmas ale.
And that had finally reached the point where like the spices had finally dropped completely away, but it still tasted like a fruitcake and gingerbread. So I totally think the spices will come down.
I'm getting melanoid into this one too. Are you not?
I'm getting onions from your hands.
No, I don't have anything in my hand.
Johnny,
Johnny, melanoid?
I kind of think a bit of bourbon barrel aging would be kind of
Well,
gilding the lily on this.
yeah, I was going to say, the problem is, so what would be nice about the bourbon barrel would add some alcohol, which would cut through some of the richness, along with the tannins, but also so much vanilla that I think it would almost make it like, "Arr!" So to me, this is a really well-rounded Christmas ale that I think will last for a period of time. Jim?
How much of the spiciness came out of the yeast, or is this all additions?
It's all additions.
I mean, most of this is going to be additions. Because, again, you got anisette. You don't really get that from yeast. You got cinnamon and nutmeg, but not in this quantity. I mean, there's ginger, I think, in here. So I think, look, I'm happy with this beer.
I am too.
But I would totally say, go buy some bottles of this, support your local brewery, and go throw it away in your cellar for next Christmas and enjoy it.
For next Christmas will be.
I'd say, would you say about a year is about right?
Yeah, I think a year or two.
What's the ABV on that?
10.1. It'll have no problems aging. All right. Any other comments about the Monkish before we leave it? It's good. It's good. All right. Show of hands. Avec le bon vue. Let's see how, after consuming all these 10% beers, let's see how well my pronunciation stays. All right. Mission Holiday. All right, still got a few out there, and the monkish. All right, yeah. Again, I think that one's kind of just a nice little gingerbread type thing, and fruitcake, but in a good way.
I like it.
You like it? All right. So now we're going on to Unibrew. All right, Unibrew, everybody's favorite Japanese-owned Canadian brewery. They are. They're owned by, I think it's Kirin. Kirin owns Sleeman's, which owns Unibrew. Yeah, and that was sort of a weird thing that happened. Huh? Yeah. So now, Unibrew has been arguably one of the most reliable North American Belgian beer producers for decades. I remember when I was still in college, I went to Montreal before I was legal to drink here in the U.S. because I went to school in Boston. So if you live in Boston, you want to get your drink on and you want to be legal about it, you go to Montreal, go enjoy the strip clubs, and go drink a lot of beer. All right?
That's what the geeks do.
Yeah, exactly. And so hanging out with a bunch of Canadian friends who really like to drink, they took us over to this little liquor store. And again, like I said, this was like 94, 95, 96 region. Took us over to this little liquor store not too far away from their house at McGill University, and said, "Here, buy beer. Make sure you get Molson Export," because that's what they wanted to drink. And while I was there, I spotted these little bottles of this beer called La Fin du Monde. I don't know much French, but I know that means badass. All right, and sure enough, I went and I bought La Fin du Monde and proceeded to get frickin' ripped. Because, again, young college-age kid in the pre-craft beers everywhere sort of world. La Fin du Monde, I think, comes in at like 10%. 9-10% area. Yeah, that was a bit of a rip snorter. And the Canadians all looked at me like I was crazy, like, what is this beer that you're drinking? And, okay. So, Unibrew has been very reliable for a number of years. This one is one I've never seen before, and I grabbed it because, hey, why the hell not? It says here, this is a dark ale at 10% alcohol with spicy character, inspired by a recipe our brewmaster created for his friends. Spicy caramel aroma evolves on the palate into pleasant and complex notes of toffee, with reminiscence of tasty gingerbread. Perfect balance between spicy caramel, roasted malt flavors is complemented by a nice roundness and persistent finish. La Resolution has a festive feel, perfect for the holidays, but it can be easily enjoyed all year long. After all, it's a good time for a resolution. All right? So, let's see.
Yeah.
Ooh, a lot of musty spice. Like ginger, horehound. How many people know horehound?
I met her at a bar once.
Always fucking with my rhythm. All right. Horehound is an old medicinal herb used for centuries for everything, including cough. Turns out it has positive effects on cough. It also was used heavily in candies. And I learned to like horehound candy from my grandfather who grew up in the Depression. And so I may be like one of a few people under the age of, say, 50 who likes horehound candy. I'm weird. So I get horehound a lot in a lot of these sort of things, and people go, what?
Well, what does horehound taste like?
It's a cross between. All right, horehound to me comes off almost always as a cross between licorice, mint, and ginger, with a sort of a musty backbone to it, which is what makes horehound unpopular. And when you taste it, you're kind of like going, I feel like this is medicine, because it was. And that's the reason why I'm saying horehound is because the very first thing I get in this is I get that sort of musty, gingery type thing. Well, and that plays in with the horehound as well, but yeah, definitely minty. All right. So now here's the thing. Do y'all get that plummy note in the aroma? That to me is the hallmark of the Unibrew yeast, because it's plummy without a sweetness. All right. So I almost always get that, and then it drops into sort of a buttery earthiness, which I think is kind of being covered up by some of that horehound and mint and other things that are in here. Beer comes off, it drops, it has an initial sweet presence to it and drops off fairly quickly. Never drops to bone dry, but, and by that I mean it doesn't drop to that aggressively bone dry thing where you're kind of going, it drops into this world where the beer just kind of goes, sayonara, right? Now, Bruce?
The gingerbread thing is definitely there, particularly after the cake is set. You know, and you're sort of inhaling, exhaling, sampling the flavors, the aromas that still left there. Also, there's a tiny little edge of acidity.
Yep.
Tiny what, Bruce?
It keeps it fresh and it's
Right.
very, very low level of acidity.
All right, so if you couldn't get Bruce's talk, including you guys on the internet, what Bruce was saying was that the gingerbread really comes out as the beer kind of opens up. But also there's a tiny little bit of acidity in the back end of the beer that sort of refreshes everything. All right?
The lingering malt is really nice.
Yeah. And again, but what's good about it, and this is where I'm going to hammer in on my same point again and again and again, it's a lingering malt character, but it's not sweet. All right? Malt is not sweet. Yeah, that malt sensation is not necessarily sweet. Sweet is sugar. So don't get those confused. All right. Real quick, let's go down the list. Or actually, first, are there any other comments about the lovers du Chaume? Yes, no, maybe? All right. Avec. How many people like Avec Le Bon Goût the best? My people. All right, Mission Holiday. Still got a couple hangers. You're switching your vote back and forth. Jesus, lady. Monkish. All right, and the Unibrew. All right, so the Unibrew and the Monkish are kind of splitting the votes because I think they're very similar sorts of beers. I could see the Monkish dropping into something more like that Unibrew profile over time, but with that like a little bit of additional profile body around it, and not as much as like that Whorehound type flavor. All right, so Ethan, you gotta stand up here and talk because these are your beers, buddy.
Oh, I thought you were going to do the talking for me. No, I wanted you to do it.
You gotta stand here.
Oh, I can stand here.
And you gotta talk on the internet, so you're gonna be recorded for posterity.
Oh, great. Okay. All right, for those that don't recognize me, it's been a while since I've been here. It's probably been about 9 months since I've made a meeting. A 2-year-old, a 8-week-old, and a commute 45 minutes down to Anaheim will do that to you. What's that? So I recently, well, not recently, I guess back in February, started with the brewery down in Placentia. Started as a packager, just putting bottles in boxes, and 2 months into it, they had a brewer who had a back problem, and they said, we need some muscle, and I had a little bit of a background in brewing, mostly thanks to all the people here. I stepped up just to help out, did a good enough job, you know, that they promoted me within 4 months to brewer.
And you're not the only Falcon down there, too, because Andrew's still there, right?
Yep, Andrew's still there. He heads up our experimental brewing.
Andrew Bell.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Andrew Bell has probably what I would argue is one of the funnest jobs of any brewing person in the world. He runs the brewery's pilot system.
Yeah.
He's basically a professional home brewer.
A professional home brewer.
It's pretty sweet. Talking about our pilot system, we have a 3-barrel pilot system with something like 21 3-barrel conicals. So there's constantly new things going. Unfortunately, it's not online right now. We're working on getting the glycol lines up, but they've been very kind of embracing the homebrew kind of attitude. And a lot of what we do is we take off 5 gallons of Tart of Darkness, and we'll ferment it with Mexican lager yeast and do things that don't get released but are still in that experimental nature. So the first beer that we're tasting is Saison Roux. It's one of the original recipes at the brewery. Kind of going back to what Drew was saying, not all Saisons have that Brett character. This one's actually bottle conditioned with Brett. It's Brett Brutz, actually. But it is fermented with our house yeast, which is a Belgian yeast. Ferments out in about 4 days, actually, in stainless. Just blows through it. When we bottle it up, and it sits in a conditioning warehouse for a month, and it's ready to go.
What are your gravities on that?
Saison Roux, I want to say, is somewhere between 17 and 18, but putting out 50 different beers a year, it's really hard to keep track of.
real quick, can you tell people, for the people who haven't been tracking this sort of stuff closely, what's going on with the brewery Taro?
Okay, so Taro is just kind of a and so you're seeing the crossed out label, and I'll just address that because some people ask me. It's just bottles that haven't been released to the public, and they're employee beers, or there's a wrinkle in the label, or there's a slight low fill or something they give to us, and we're not really allowed to give them out, but we're allowed to share them, in person with people. So that's the answer to that.
AKA it's the anti-eBay policy.
So, but Brewery Taro, we were having a bunch of infection issues, and so we started we started cellaring and packaging all of our wild, fermenting all of our wild and sour brews at a separate facility, and they just took that opportunity to.
Drink up, Buttercup.
Which one is this? Welcome to my job.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So they just took that opportunity to kind of launch a separate brand. So anything you see with the word Taro on it, which is essentially a derivative of Earth, is going to be one of those sour beers.
Brett and everything else infused.
Yeah, Brett, lacto, PDO, anything that's
funky and wild.
Funky and wild.
All right, real quick. Yeah, John.
Just before bottling. Yep.
Yeah, and that's not unusual. I mean, like Orval, for instance, very famously, they switched their packaging methodology about a decade ago to go from Brett in secondary to Brett only gets infused into Orval now in the bottle. So yeah, it's not uncommon.
You said this finished out in 4 days?
Yeah.
All right.
And how long was it aged? Is it aged at all, or just?
It's bottle conditioned in our, just in a warmer kind of environment, probably for like 5 or 6 weeks.
All right. So since we're running through the other brewery beers here real quick, and how many of these do you bring, buddy?
I brought 3.
3. All right. So everybody's getting drunk off the Grand Hydro presentation, so be careful. How many people? Any other comments about the saison roux? All right. So since
I think it's 7-8%, something like that. How much is it?
My only comment is I think that beer gets better.
8.5. Okay.
8.5. All right. So now, since it's not a holiday beer, we're not going to include it in the rundown. But
you mentioned a month conditioning, and then you said 5 to 6 weeks. Bottle conditioning after that? Or?
No.
Okay.
The bottle conditioning is what I was talking about as far as conditioning goes.
bottle conditioning, just for everybody, bottle conditioning a month to 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Next one.
Okay, next one is it's more of our Thanksgiving beer, but it kind of falls in line with the spiced kind of holiday beers. Is Autumn Maple. And again, going back to what Drew was saying, Belgian beer is finishing really dry. This one's not finished dry. This one's actually finishes very sweet. And as far as kettle spice additions being very subtle, this one's not very subtle. And brewery doesn't do a whole lot of subtle things, for better or for worse, But
how are the yams?
The yams are dumped into the mash tun, and I'd be happy to show everybody a picture of me. I think I'm allowed to say this. Up on a forklift on a pallet with a huge drum of pureed aseptic yams, just dumping them into our mash tun.
Are they yellow or orange?
Wait, hold on.
Just right in the mash, and it's really hard to adjust for that temperature too. While we do it.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
what a world that we live in, that you can buy commercially aseptically packaged barrels.
Oh yeah, just big old things.
So you don't cure it yourself.
Like seriously, if you said to me, "Oh yeah, no, you can go and buy a barrel of aseptic yam puree," I'd be like, "You're lying."
Yep.
This is really nice.
Yeah. Now, so what I get out of this is I get like maple, but also maple smokiness. Like that, the back end of a maple wood, like the burnt ends.
Right. Well, there's maple syrup and there's also molasses in it. You probably get that from the molasses.
So what does this go out for?
I believe this is about 8.5% as well.
For everybody on the internet, there's your bottle. If you don't know the Autumn Maple, find it.
Bottle say 10.
No, it doesn't really.
Yes, it does.
That's why you have it. Hey, we know you don't remember, but you can read the bottle.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, take a tip from me. Read the bottle.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
All right. So, any other comments about this? Bruce?
A lot of people don't like it. Sweet though.
I love it.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
This one doesn't cheat.
So, guys, real quick, since everybody's feeling the effects of the alcohol and is talking too much, what Bruce was commenting about was that there's this really kind of long drawn, very sort of deep maple flavor that's kind of hanging out there, and you're saying from grade B.
It's more characteristic of that, because if you know the difference in the grades of the grade is lighter, grade B's darker and more characteristic.
Well, but as we talked about last month, or the last 2 or 3 months, I can't even fucking remember anymore. But as we talked about, remember Vermont has gone and changed the grading system now. Everything is now grade A. So what we used to think of as grade B, which really truthfully is the better maple syrup, is now grade A dark amber. So look for that. All right.
So he was just saying that they add the maple here to knock out.
Makes sense. So you can keep more of the maple aromatics. All right. And one last brewery, Kel?
Just on the maple syrup thing, just because I did another maple beer recently and I purchased maple syrup from a couple different suppliers. Just so everyone knows, not all grade A dark and all grade B. Right now, anything that says grade B is still better than grade A dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because it's still a voluntary switchover, but this is the new thing that they're doing. All right, since Autumn Maple is a holiday beer, we're going to include it in the rundown.
Hey!
All right, Vic.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I can't write something down.
All right.
You got yours? Yeah.
All right.
We weren't ready. We
All
weren't
right.
ready.
Vic LeBavou. How many people like that the best? 5 people.
We're not counting the breweries, right?
Right. Well, no. The brewery's coming in.
This one, yeah.
All right. Mission Holiday. One lone holdout. Monkish. Couple lone holdouts. Are they lone holdouts if they're a couple? No. All right. Unibrew. All right. Still got a crew. All right. And the Brewery Autumn Maple. All right.
Too bad.
All right. Now on to the last brewery beer. 8 Maids.
Okay, the 8 Maids is an imperial milk. I would say porter. I think it says stout on the label. And it's fermented with our Belgian yeast. So any of that spice character that you're getting from it is all yeast derived.
What do you see? You know?
It's our Belgian house yeast.
So imperial milk, Belgian, stoutish, porterish, made up bullshit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's it. Lots of lactose in it. This is 25 Plato beer, so
All right. Hey, real quick.
1100.
Wait, real quick. Let's do this. How strong is this beer?
11.3%.
All right. Hey, finally got one right. I looked at the bottle.
It's called you say it's called a stout?
Yeah.
I think it has the richness of a stout. Well, more so than the toastiness of a porter. I think it
Okay.
fits the stout.
All right, great.
I mean, it's not real strong. But
Well,
Yeah,
but-
right.
More of a mouthfeel of a porter.
Well, okay. Here's the thing I like about this. So I've had a lot of Belgian stouts in the past, where a lot of the Belgian stouts come off with that really harsh acrid note to it, because basically the Belgian yeast will go through all of the sugar that's resting behind the beer, and just leave that sort of strong acrid roast note.
Yeah, exactly.
So Hercule, for instance, is probably the best of them, and it still has that. This, because of the lactose, I think the lactose saves it and rounds out that acidic character, and keeps the beer kind of tasting very, very stoutish or porterish, but still allowing it to go Belgian dry. I mean, there's definitely some sweetness on it, but that's going to happen when you have that much lactose.
Yeah.
Plus, also the lactose is really noticeable as that sort of richness and sort of almost like a buttery sweetness, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Other comments?
damn good.
No. So I have a question. Fine. So this is number 8 in the holiday series, for obvious reasons. So what's going to happen when the brewery gets past 12?
We'll have to come up with a new song.
I think you just need to reverse back and go back down the list, right?
Do that.
And so suddenly 5 golden rings, everything just becomes a stronger version of like what was done before.
Stronger version? Oh man.
Hey, what? You got balls or are you a brewery?
Yeah, you know.
All right.
We can try.
All right.
I can make the work, you know, because I used to make the beer.
That's always a question. All right. So since this is also holiday beer, we'll include this in the rundown.
Good.
Any other commentary? This is good. That's good. Balanced. All right. But by the way, my favorite question to ask brewers nowadays is, excluding the word balance, describe your brewing philosophy. It screws them up. All right.
Fake.
Yeah. All right. Let's run down the list. Avec le bon vue. All right. Still hanging in there. Mission. All right. He's on the mission. He's on Mission Hill. All right, Monkish. Oh, Monkish is almost dead, which is a shame because it's really good. That shows how good this stuff is. All right, Unibird. Yep. All right, Autumn Maple. All right, 8 Maids.
Yes.
All right, proving once again that brewers always like the last beer they had, particularly as they get stronger. All right, so yeah, it's true. All right, so guys, thank you. Everybody give Ethan a big round of applause. All right. We're ensuring that we are going to have a very well lubricated Grand Hydro. Right. Stone, yeah. There's 3 small bottles of beers. Oh, we're not even close. Right. This one gets short first.
Happy Hanukkah, yeah.
I'm saying, I have to I gotta use him. I got pins in him.
You didn't bring your phone, did you?
I didn't. I thought I was.
Bring that next one. Let me see the bottle real quick.
That's the base.
All right.
Is this bottle conditioned?
I'll take a picture.
All right. So
No, you in it.
now we are on to what was the last of the planned Grand Hydro beers. Planned.
There might be some unplanned ones.
As much as I can plan anything. And we're going to do the Stone Winter Harvest. This was part of their. This is part of their special small bottle series that I would say the name to, but I would screw it up completely. And this is a Belgian strong golden ale aged in barrels with grapes grown on the Stone Farm in Escondido. Wine grapes.
That's too bad.
Now, I love and trust a lot of the things that the guys at Stone do. Like for instance, Mitch is a really great brewer, and really does a hell of a number. He's also very, very, very willing to share on everything that they do. But as a general rule of thumb, I tend to get a little bit more distrustful of Stone whenever they get into the Belgian world. Yeah, because I don't know, for some reason I haven't had a lot of Belgian beers out of Stone that I've really, dug on a lot. So this one I thought I would give this. I thought this would be an interesting choice. This is their Winter Harvest beer, and it's got an interesting nose right off the bat. You say weird. I say interesting. You get big oak.
Vanilla, coconut.
Yeah, I mean this is a. All right, so guys, real quick, this to me is very much like a light toasted type oak thing, where it's a lot of kind of what I would almost categorize as more blondish type aromas. So you get vanilla, you get those kind of an acorn thing, you get wood, you get a big beer here that 11.some-odd%. Oh yeah.
I mean, to me, that was the first thing I got was the sourness and some funk.
Well,
Now it's starting to change. It's changing now.
But you get that oak. It's a lot of oak character in the nose.
What are you shaking your head about, Bruce?
So, again, we go into what I get a lot of this beer. Yeah.
The nose is so deceiving.
So, yeah, you get that nose, which is all oak, right? A little bit of sourness. You get, we have one of the bottles here.
I got you right here.
All right. But yeah, so this is unfiltered and aged for 27 months in Sonoma County Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay barrels. So it's all white wine characters.
Oh, this is really. That's why it's got the sourness from the wine.
It's 11.3%.
Do they use grapes in it?
Yeah.
How much?
No, it doesn't say. It just says the mash is straight Pilsner. Hoyle is Magnum hops and candy sugar additions only. Whirlpool Hallertauer hops. Bright Tank, they added Stone Farm Merlot grapes and then spent 27 months in American and French oak Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay barrels.
Well, it's okay.
Is there natural lactobacillus in this, or is it added?
Well, I would imagine you're picking stuff up from the barrel. So,
It's like wood.
What it smells like wood.
well, but you also get the grapes. You get, it's a very simple beer, but with a lot of stuff going on. On it, but it is very heavily dominated by the wood. Yeah. Now, by the way, in comparison to a lot of the other beers that we've had today, yeah, this actually harkens back to that Avec Le Bon Vin, right? In terms of the malt simplicity, and kind of the simplicity of the body of the beer. It has a ton of characters to it that you may or may not agree with. But in terms of this also being a Belgian-style beer coming from Stone, this is arguably about the closest thing I've had from them that I think really, really nails into it.
I don't think there's a lot of Belgian style.
Well, there's the sourness, there's the hooey. A lot of it's from the oak, and
Wine and barrels and crap instead of
all right.
It tastes a lot more barrel.
Yeah. Plus, also, let's face it, it's 11.3% in a sort of very deceptive way.
It's pretty clear when it comes off with wine.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other comments about the Winter Harvest from Stone? We got a lot of barrel-dominated comments.
I love the complexity of this beer. It's truly complex.
What are they charging for that bottle?
Stone, yeah.
I think it's 14.
No, I mean, Stone is not really. And this is Mitch's.
Even their pale ale change. For $14, I'd rather get a bottle of wine.
There you go.
Well, that's what I was getting at.
All right.
With the price, you'd want to know which.
Yeah, I think this is between 14 and 17. I can't remember which.
I'd take that over wine.
Yeah.
At that price.
So it's definitely higher. It's at a higher price point than the other Stone products, but it also makes sense because it's also at a higher labor cost and ingredient cost. All right. Any other comments about the Stone Winter Harvest?
Too much at one time.
All right.
When they were doing the vertical epic series, it did come with grease in it that was not nearly very good. This is a lot better than that. And I'm wondering because of the age if it wasn't, something.
Who knows? Here's the thing. I always argue for simplicity in recipes. It's one of my things. And one of the things that this has going for it is relative simplicity in the recipe to allow for other complexities to grow into it. If they had tried to do this with, say, a malt bill as complex as anything from the brewery or Unibrew or any of those brewery beers we had, or Unibrew or Monkish, it would be a giant mess. As it is right now, I think the biggest thing you could argue about it is it's very oak-centric, right? And that makes it very challenging and complex. So,
They were looking to make a great flavor, they contain all the oak and grapes and then some.
exactly. All right. So let's go through the list real quick because we're still not done. Avec, losing supporters but still stalwarts. Mission, hanging in there, man. You're just going to hang in now to the end just because you have to, right? All right, Monkish. All right, there we go. You're rejoined. Unibrew. Still hanging on to a few. The brewery out of Maple. All right, the Brewery 8 Maids.
Yes.
Oh, that was good.
All right, that looks like the winner so far. And the Stone Winter Warmer. All right, there we go. All right. No.
Oh, I was going to say, what's...
More?
It's a good thing this list is short today.
Drew, both Steve and I were just saying, it's the best winter warmer holiday Grand Hydro session ever, and it's not the alcohol talking.
All right. So, because this is Christmas, and Christmas is the spirit of excess.
What about Hanukkah?
Well, okay, Hanukkah. Well, Hanukkah's not so much a spirit of excess. Yeah. Well, and ironically, we'll have a Hanukkah beer next month.
That's all.
All right. Izzy, our multi-time Merlin Cup winner, who works for Artisan Ales. He was supposed to be here, but he dropped a couple beers off on me on my patio this morning because he works in the same city I live in. I got some.
There must have been beer all over your patio this morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Izzy dropped these off.
You dropped the sodas off?
Yeah. So Izzy dropped us off.
What year is this?
Yeah. So Izzy dropped off our last two beers that we're going to have today. There's a third one, but I'm going to delay it till next month because, yikes. And it fits in better with next month anyway. We're going to do a classic Belgian winter warmer, Scaldus Noel, or if you're in Belgium, Bush Noel. Apparently some Brazilian-Belgian company decided that somebody selling a beer called Bush that wasn't owned by them in the U.S. was not allowed to call it Bush and would confuse the hell out of the consumers to have a beer that looked like this at whatever this is, like 13% or something.
Only 12.
Oh, only 12. This 12% beer would confuse American consumers.
Oh yeah, sure it would. Think it might be Bush beer?
It's the stronger version of Bush Light, obviously.
Yeah, well, wait, they had Bud Light Platinum, so maybe this is Bush Platinum or something. I don't know.
Coming to the head of the food line.
All right. So, this is from Brasserie du Buisson, which is in the French part of Belgium. And they are classically known for their Scottish line, all of which are basically monsters. Right?
I love monsters.
Yeah. So there's the Scaldus Amber, what we call Scaldus. There's Scaldus Noel. There's a couple others, and I'm refusing to remember them right now because my brain's way too into this tasting.
Does this have a year on it?
I think this is current. Is he? Yeah. Well, so the Belgians don't do born on dating. They do best by dating.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the best by date on this one is July 29th, 2016.
Alright, so that's like last year.
Yeah. So.
It's off the shelf, not under the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. That's the difference. That's what I was asking. From Izzy, it's the under the house. It's going to be old. We can't
All right, so big caramel, prunes, apricots. Kind of actually, compared to like some of the other beers that we've had so far today, a suppressed spice phenol characteristic. Definitely some fusels and some buttery tones.
This has changed over the years too, compared to what it used to be. It's a different beer.
Well, all right. So John's saying that this has changed over the years from what it used to be, and it's certainly become, for a 12% beer, a lot more restrained and a lot less headache-inducing. When this beer when I first started to have this beer, this was a beer that basically, when it was fresh or relatively young, would give you those fusel-driven headaches, like that screwdriver right behind the temple, like going. This is not the same thing anymore. This still has some fusels to it, but it still has a bastard amount of booze in it.
Why do you think it has head and has fusels? That's high alcohol. That's for preventing it very warm.
Well, and I think, I would argue a lot of it's probably yeast management. Better fermentation practices, better yeast
how do you
management.
know? I mean, besides your effect on your head.
No, it's aroma, So a lot of times, all right, how do you tell fusel alcohols? There's a couple different ways. Some people get.
Please, quiet. This is an important subject.
So some people get fusel alcohols as sort of a high alcohol sensation in their mouth, something like almost like an isopropyl. I don't get it that way. Other people will get an alcohol burning in their nose. Again, that same sort of thing, almost like a rank alcohol scent, though, not like that pure burn of ethanol.
You get it through the sides of your tongue.
Sometimes I almost always get it because, what the hell? I'm not done.
All right, keep talking.
Just keep talking.
Going. Don't stop.
Son of a bitch, you people.
Hey, the show must go on, Drew.
All right, I always get fusels basically as a sensation at the top of my nose, and I get it as that kind of ice pick feeling at my temples after starting to drink it. John, you obviously have an opinion.
I get a rubbing alcohol character from scholars. It is much better. I agree. They're either pushing more yeast or
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, let's face it. Everybody in the last decade has become far more sophisticated about what the hell to do with yeast and yeast fermentation temperatures, right? We've gotten a lot better at it, and that goes the same for commercial breweries. They're paying more attention to it now, and I think that pays off here. You're like I said, I'm not getting that same sort of pinch point high alcohol thing here.
It's there.
I do get it.
Not in the same way.
The same way.
I used to be, you stick your nose into Scaldus and it'd be like, ah! Now it's not so much.
But it was a little more complex with a little more sweetness malt background and more annoying back there.
This is the reason why I say they've improved the fermentation on it, because this drops.
Yeah.
It is really dry. It's like,
it's a different beer.
If it wasn't for the alcohol, I would say, oh, it's almost session.
Yeah. All right. Other comments about the Scaldus?
I just have a question about the fusel business. What is it that is likely to create that imbalance?
A couple things. Yeast health, poor yeast health. And then usually when you really find it, it's poor yeast health going into a high alcohol fermentation situation. Because basically what fusels are, they're yeast stress characteristic, and they're most often generated by yeast that don't have enough resources to be able to generate a sufficient population to ferment the beer that's in front of them, or yeast that are also being driven too hot. And so the reason why this always happens with higher gravity beers is, one, you have to put a shit ton more yeast into a high gravity beer to get it to ferment cleanly. Two, high gravity ferments generate more heat internally in the wort.
Cold pitch.
Well, cold pitching will help, but it's only going to help so far. So the fact of poor yeast health and poor fermentation practices into a big beer that puts you at a disadvantage to prevent fusels, combined together gives you fusel bombs.
Also, not oxygenating enough, not letting the yeast reproduce themselves.
That's part of the yeast practices.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, you had another comment?
You got something to say?
Yeah. So if you want to prevent fusels, a lot of yeast, a lot of healthy yeast, and then control the hell out of your fermentation temperatures. It is way too tempting to just pitch a Belgian yeast and let it go fuck off wherever it wants to go to. When you're doing something that's going to come in at like 11, 12, 13, 14, or who the hell knows where you want to go, you really have to pay attention, because otherwise you're going to generate fusel, ester, and phenol bombs, and it's not going to be pleasant for your drinkers. All right? Andy.
I had this beer on Thursday at Lucky Baldwin's, and it was a lot hotter and more fusel. So, I will say that.
Well, and with Lucky's, who knows how old the keg is?
Yeah, stored that for 5 years.
Yeah, you'll get.
No, not with them. They hide things. All right. So, any other comments about the Scaldus or Bush Noel?
Delicious.
All right. Anybody think that you can go over to the Van Nuys plant and buy a bottle of this now? All right. You're dumb. You were dumb. You were dumb enough at one point to be a Falcons president, so therefore.
It's like they're sitting together over here.
All right.
Each square.
Yeah.
The corner of misery.
Yeah, I was going to say you can always find the Falcons presidents because they're the ones who are drinking. All right. Exactly. All right. Let's run the list real quick because Jesus. Vivek.
Just keeps getting bigger.
All right.
Way down.
Mission holiday. All right, hanging in. Monkish?
You stick to that.
Oh. Your buddies abandoned you now. All right, Unibrew. Couple folks. All right, Autumn Maple from the brewery. Hanging in. 8 Maids.
Yes.
Still is getting its supporters, probably the most so far. Stone Winter Harvest.
Yes.
Oh, no pooing on other people's opinions.
4 people. You don't have this one on for 4 beers. We
didn't have the
Hey, look. What? This is scientific, right? All right. All right, sorry. Scaldus Noel.
Hey!
You drunk bastards. All right. Kale.
All right.
Get your butt over here.
So guys, now for something completely different that is not holiday beer at all. Oh, here.
It's a palate cleanser.
So this is these are our two. We brought 2 beers from our new brewery, Iron Triangle. It's in the Arts District.
You brought 2?
Yes.
I got 1 more to go.
I want to. The Arts District. You don't know where that is? All right. It's just east of downtown a little bit. It's in a little couple square block area known as the Arts District. If you look on a map, it'll show you that. We are going to become the sort of downtown, whatever Torrance has for beer, the Arts District is becoming that for downtown Los Angeles.
Well, I was going to say, right down downtown, or in the near future, you got Iron Triangle, Boomtown's down around that way, Arts District, Mumford, Angel City, yeah.
Indie Brewing. Yeah, there's a distillery there.
So there's the second one in downtown.
Indie Brewing is right across the street from us. It's not technically Arts District, but same thing. There's whatever. I want to say there's about 7 breweries by middle of this spring that will be open.
Who's the activities director? Let's get going here.
What?
It is not metro accessible. You will have to take a bus or walk a little bit. But fortunately, once you're there, it is either walkable to a bunch of them or a very, very short Lyft/Uber ride, maybe a half-mile tops.
Wait, hold on. How far would you say the brewery is from the nearest metro stop?
More than you'd want to walk.
How far?
3/4 of a mile to a mile.
All right, all you Angelinos, really? What? Anybody who's an Angelino who says 3/4 of a mile is too far to walk, you should fuck off. That's how I lost the weight.
So now, next thing I would like to do. Okay, you drunk bastards, listen to me for a second.
Shush!
All right, guys, now I want to introduce you to somebody who's become very special and important to my life.
John.
This is Darren Moser. Darren Moser is our head brewmaster. Darren comes to us. He spent a pretty good chunk of time at Trummer Pills learning how to do one beer really, really well. And then later moved to Hawaii, and he worked at Maui Brewing Company for 3 years doing lots of beers really well. He made the foolish decision to leave the Hawaiian paradise and come back and work for us, which we really appreciate. So I'm going to let him take over and talk about this beer in specific and our next beer as well. So this first one is Iron Triangle Dark Ale. We're going to just name brand our core beers. So Iron Triangle IPA, Dark Ale, and we'll have some other, traditional beer named beers, but our core brands are just going to be Iron Triangle insert style. And we'll talk a little bit about Dark real quick. So go ahead, take this over.
So real quick, I see the IPA is already getting poured, so you guys are a little bit ahead of the game.
No. They just drink fast.
We're drinking this one.
So, I need to be home by Tuesday.
You're just into hops.
So, very important to me. I do this for a living. I don't know how to do anything else. So, the Dark Ale. So when I came on board with Iron Triangle, these guys kind of handed me a few concepts that they wanted to see. So this Dark Ale is it's 2 rum malt and Pilsner with some Dark Munich, C60, and Carafa 3 bringing in most of the color and just a little bit of chocolate malt. We like to look at it somewhere between like a porter and a Schwartz beer. So that's kind of where we wanted it to land. It's fermented with a German ale strain. So, again, somewhere right outside of the realm of Schwarzbier. So it should be kind of a little bit of sweetness, obviously dark in color and finish real clean. Right outside of what you'd expect there.
It feels like it could fill in that sort of poundable gap for something with some more richness to it. Just kind of like the now long lamented solidarity. All right.
So I guess we'll roll right into the IPA.
No. Any comments about the dark ale?
I like it. This is, to me, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a wonderful beer. I really like this beer.
It's a German ale strain. I want to say, how are we giving out secrets? 29. It's number 29.
Why Labs 02?
So they have two. I prefer 29.
Why do you prefer 29?
It's got a better ester profile, a little bit more fruitiness, which isn't going to come out so much in this beer, but in a lighter beer it would. And on a production level, you have to pick your yeast strains carefully because you only get a few choices.
There you go.
So.
Thank you for making a sessionable stout. That's very nice.
Very smelly.
Not over the top. Yeah, super high alcohol.
All right. So it looks like Jimbo and Kevin are getting most of the IPA around.
Yeah.
So let's get some IPA knowledge dropped.
IPA. This one tastes like IPA.
Real quick show of hands.
A lot of them don't anymore.
Real quick show of hands. How many people in this room have ever had an IPA before? I know it's sometimes an obscure style.
It is a sweet style. But honestly, a lot of IPAs don't smell like IPAs anymore. This sauce is wonderful.
All right.
What's a name using seeds?
So this IPA is it's pretty straightforward. There's it's really hard to try to kind of break boundaries on IPA these days. But I think, as suggested, we're seeing people trying to break boundaries and not actually producing solid IPAs.
Well, I think at this point in time, you could argue that you're breaking boundaries just by making a very nice, drinkable IPA.
Well, I think I asked this question a long time ago, and we get this a lot, and I think Darren has one of the best answers I've ever heard. What's your favorite beer style? What's your favorite beer to drink?
I like well-made beer.
That's what I like.
So this is a real well-made IPA. So can you tell us a little bit more about this IPA? Do you use oils, extracts?
I was going to.
Good.
Or move over.
Am I that fast?
So, this IPA is 2-row Maris-Otter base. It's got Vienna malt, Chateau biscuit malt, and a little bit of Cara Red. So the idea is we want a light, dry base beer. By mixing up kind of a lot of times what you see on production level is breweries having to bring in a certain amount of base malt. And what it does is streamlines all the recipes. For a little bit of differentiation, I really like blending a little bit of Maris-Otter and a little bit of 2-row because no one's doing that. So what it does is it gives you an interesting base malt character. All the color, you want IPA not to be too dark, but from a recipe development standpoint, it's very difficult to hit your mark by depending on a small amount of specialty malt to add all your color and flavor because you can overshoot or undershoot very easily. So by adding a decent percentage of Vienna malt and a little bit of Cara Red and a little bit of biscuit, you got a lot of variability there to come in with excuse me, a nice color and a lot of backbone for the base. So hops are not nothing too special going on here, but it's a lot about the schedule. So if you're at all familiar with some of the kind of IPA brewing techniques that actually Mitch talks a lot about, we're using some first word hops. And we're using really heavy Whirlpool additions and a little bit in between for balance. It's classic C, Pacific Northwest, classic C's, 3 C's and 2 S's.
So any extracts?
No extracts, all pellets.
What do we say the idea is?
IBU, I think we're right around 80, 85.
Really?
On an original gravity.
Calculated.
Well, but on
we're OG 16.
Okay.
What balance MO to 2-row do you use?
I want to say. Out of the base malt grist, about 75% 2-row, 25% Maris, if I remember correctly.
So now, I was going to say you mentioned
I
Mitch.
might not remember
You mentioned Mitch earlier, and when you said Maris Otter and Pale, like I got a little extra, happy because all of my IPAs are based on 50-50 Maris and 2-row.
Sure.
And Mitch actually mentions in his book that there's the classic Burton white malt idea. And the classic Burton white malt was a malt used for IPAs exclusively, and he said there are brewers over in England, both at the home and pro level, who are replicating that malt, which is still available but in short quantity, with a 50-50 blend of Mo and 2-row. And I just like it because I think what it does is it gives you enough malt character that's interesting without like getting in the way.
Yeah, so Maris Otter is it's a unique malt because it's supposed to replicate. It's a modern replication of traditional floor malting, so you get an inherent inconsistency in the base malt itself, and that kind of lends. By using Maris Otter, you're making up for adding 1% C15. So.
What was your mashing temperature? I didn't hear.
You know what? That'll be it. That'll be an experiment for you guys.
times and temperatures. That's
will,
proprietary. But really, so what I will tell you is that in order.
Like you went in kind of low, like in a,
I was going to tell you, but now I'm not.
Jim, just
what I will tell you is that I'm a huge fan of set temperature mashing. You get just better control over everything you do, and there's rarely any harm in undershooting, provided you have the tools to do so. So for all of the beers that we're producing currently, we're going in on a low-end mash temperature, and then rising to our desired saccharification. So
how big is your system there?
30 barrel.
What, 30?
30 barrel.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
And are these? I assume these are like amongst the first batches to come off, right?
They are.
How are you set for bright tanks and fermenters and stuff?
Well,
you have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, if you pay attention to their Facebook feed, you can see like it's like, oh hey shit, that's a lot of equipment.
We were recently asked about our system, and they're like, how are you built? How are you set up? And our constant response to people is, we're built to grow. So we like these beers, and we want to make sure that before long, everybody in LA can have those beers.
Figure out when we can have them. When we can.
Yeah, this IPA. I've been to so many breweries lately that are making IPAs and double IPAs, and they've lost because maybe they don't have the position in hops, but they've lost the nose on their IPAs. The whole profile of the bitterness has changed on them now. Maybe it's a trend that's changing. But this goes back to some traditional IPAs that I really like, so it's fantastic for me.
As for the opening, which I know has been a question I receive 5 to 6 times a day, we will open as soon as the city lets us. And one other real quick thing that was just mentioned, these are Crowler cans right now. We will have Crowlers, and we will fill your growlers. And we'll add it to the list as soon as we're open. I'll take anybody's growler. We'll just tape it or whatever. We will not have iron triangle growlers per se. We're going to get these really fancy ones. If you want to buy those are great. But for the most part, we're going to be leaning on the Crowler can because this thing is fucking awesome.
Are those things 100% aluminum? Are they lined with plastic inside, or what's the makeup of them?
So pretty much any commercial can. This is a ball. It is a ball product. So what you've got is it's an aluminum can,
right.
All aluminum, but it's a sprayed dried coating on the inside, which.
So it can protect you from
it's a full-on can, and I don't think people have quite solved the BPA thing. It's for people who are concerned about that.
They're working on it.
I know they're working on it. I don't think they've actually rolled it out yet. Yeah. All right, Ethan.
Quick question,
Ethan.
Yeah, I was curious. How are you guys raising the temperature?
Pardon?
In your mash, how are you raising your temperature?
It's a steam jacketed mash mixer.
Oh.
Everybody's got one in their home.
dry hopping?
The IPA is dry hop beer. Yes. So.
What? Story behind the name? In the very, very, very short version of this, the city of Los Angeles prior to like 1900 had zero water, maxed out at about 200,000 capacity for population. Iron Triangle is in reference to the three men who built the LA Aqueduct, William Mulholland, Frederick Eaton, and Joseph Lippincott. So it is reference to the people who literally built Los Angeles.
Okay, what are your cross streets? Are you down by the other that old brewery that used to be many
We're
years
right
ago?
next to the Biscuit Lots, Church and State, Little Bear, if you know where those are. We're on Mill Street and Alameda, essentially.
You guys use RO or you filter?
It's a carbon filter only, so we're not doing any RO. We're there for these beers. They were absolutely other than carbon filtering for removing chloramines and chlorines and things from the city water supply, and then a simple particulate filter. We are using the water that we have incoming. We've done zero salt water corrections on these beers, partially because you don't do that unless you know what your beer is going to be like and what you're adjusting for. And I think so far we're pretty happy. If we can avoid doing water adjustments, we will.
Remember that LA water in general is pretty damn good for ales. Yeah, it's not perfect for lagers, but it's pretty damn good for ales. All right, so
Question. I guess I missed it. Have you opened already?
No.
We have not opened already. Like I said, as soon as the city will let us, that is our last hiccup. It is CUP. It's the same kind of crap that Boomtown has been dealing with. If you don't know, opening some business, specifically an alcohol business in the city of Los Angeles, it is a gauntlet that will beat even the best of people. So
remember, folks, I've talked about in the past that LA has a prohibitionist history that still actually affects the city politics today, even though the last time it was really a matter was in the 1920s and 1930s. There you go.
There'll also be 9 breweries open by this time next year in Ventura. There's 4 now. There'll be 9 and 2 distilleries.
That's nice.
Any other questions?
Why your name?
I just mentioned it. You missed it.
Cut her off!
You'll have to come to the brewery and get the tour. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Big hand for the Triangle Beers. All right, and as you may or may not have heard Tiffany say over there in her corner of hiding, she just left, that there's planned works for doing something in downtown early next year, so we can go hang out at a couple of different places down there and have some fun. All right, so last beer of the Grand Hydro tasting. Unless somebody else has squirreled away something else in their brain.
There is. Shut up, Nicholas.
There's maybe 2 more. For the Grand Hydro?
Yeah.
Where's
your beer? Goddamn, where's your pro beer?
Is it winter beer?
Does it matter at this point, really?
All right, fine. Fuck it. Not the last beer of the tasting. All right. So, what we have here, I alluded to it earlier. This is Anchor Our Special Ale, aka Anchor Christmas Ale, from 2010. We had 2 Magnums that were brought into us by Bob Brewer the last time he stopped by the club. And Izzy cellared these, so at some point in time these are probably covered in dirt. Yeah! And Izzy gave them to me this morning so that you all could enjoy them. Yes, sir. It's entirely possible.
It's like 2010.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Our Special Ale, they kind of shrouded in mystery. They never really tell you anything about it. But basically, spiced porter, right? I think it's like 5.5. Somewhere around here.
That's what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.5. There it is. 5.5%. But the combination of the dark malts and the heavy spicing really helps kind of keep the oxidation effects down. It is. For fuck's sake, what do you want? People to freaking make a beer that's nuclear proof?
No, I do
What's your fucking language, Shu?
You're on the internet.
Sorry, Internet.
Come on, you're live. We got a bleep. FCC. We have to censor NBC. Come on over. Disney. Yeah, we have a Disney guy here, ex-Disney guy.
Okay, bring it on, Drew.
All right, but
Bring it home.
think of this basically as an English porter with a lot of spices to it. And as we said before, or as we alluded to before when we were talking about the monkish, the Anchor R Special Ale has really kind of improved in its initial approachability, which probably also harms the long-term aging effects of it. But I still think, but I think really here, still at 5 years, you're getting a fair amount of the spice. You're still getting that gingerbread effect. And there is oxidation, but it's not oxidation to the point of distraction.
Hey, what are you doing?
Right? So, other comments about the Anchor R Special Ale from 2010, which you guys are never going to ever have right again.
Still spicy. Still lots of spice.
Yeah.
Still lots of spice.
Just take you real like that, this guy.
Yeah, hide that. Any other comments?
You know,
No?
I think it's held up pretty good for a little beer.
It is.
I think it's still maintained.
All right. So let's run the list real quick. Avec. All right, Avec still has its hanger-ons. Thank you, people. Mission. Yep. Monkish. The Monkish has officially lost off on all the votes, which is a shame because it's an excellent beer. Unibrew. Unibrew's Toast. Brewery Autumn Maple. All right, Brewery 8 Maids. All right, Stone Winter Warmer. All right, Scaldus Noel.
You got a
And
bunch
the
of
Anchor-
fucking drunks here. Come on.
Anchor Christmas. Anchor Christmas.
I'll go for it.
All right.
No, you won't.
You people.
I know you
Bunch
won't.
of drunk bastards driven by alcohol. All right,
11 every minute of it.
Joe,
Oh, hey, guys.
speak.
Hey, yo. Hi.
Step back this way, sir.
Here, as some of you may know, recently got taken on as the head brewer over at McLeod. And, so,
Lost him in the shop, and that was that's a
So, yeah, we're in the middle of, doing a whole bunch of changes. Like, we're in the process of switching, to full reverse osmosis water treatment and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, this was the one of the first new beers that we brewed since I've been there.
This is your one?
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's the beer name is called the Blunder. If you don't know, all of our beers are named after bagpiping tunes.
Okay.
So
Since when do you know about bagpipes and shit?
since I started working there. So yeah, basically it's just it's a really nice like amber ale, for the malt bill underneath. We use pretty much 100% Golden Promise for the base on all of our beers, with pretty much exclusively English caramel and other specialty malts. There's a tiny amount of like some Wireman chocolate wheat in there just to darken it up a touch. But yeah, it's still got just a one single bittering addition in the kettle, and then a big fat whirlpool addition of Citra and Waimea. Whirlpool of Citra, and then dry hopped with Waimea.
What's Waimea? I've never had that.
It's a New Zealand hop, one of those big crazy high oil, super fruity.
Are you using oils or are you using...
No oils.
Just
pellet.
what do we call it?
Cohumula?
Cohumula? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, we just no. It's high oil in the sense of that there's just a lot of oil in the hop, very intensely aromatic. So yeah, we're going to be doing a whole bunch of cool new stuff. We got our test batch program is really cranking out, so we should be having new beers on tap every week. You guys can come try. So there's a lot of new and interesting stuff happening. Okay, yeah. So if you don't know where it is, it's in Van Nuys. It's on Calvert Street, which is just a little bit south of Victory, and it's in between Van Nuys Boulevard and Kester. So
it's not too far from the Van Nuys governmental complex.
It's actually really close. Yes, we have a tasting room.
So go pay your ticket. Go make your court appearance. Go over to McLeod's.
How big is your system over there?
We're brewing on a 3-vessel, 7-barrel.
To the brewer.
Come on, respect. 3-barrel, 7.
7-barrel, 3-vessel Frankenbrew systems, all made out of dairy tanks and IBC totes.
What do you mean Frankenbrew?
Oh, it's like when you build together equipment from dairy equipment, basically. So yeah, just we just have an insulated mash tun and we do a single infusion.
Pretty much British style beers.
Yeah, we do. We predominantly produce real ale, so cask conditioned British styles of beer. We do a lot of historical recreations of old recipes. But we're also, one of the things we're going to be adding to the portfolio is we're going to be doing a whole line of draft beer. So
what does that mean? I mean, we all know what draft is.
Beers that's designed to be served in a normal draft beer system, at 38 degrees with bubbles and all that stuff.
Without being on a cask, in other words.
Without it being on cask.
But English styles, but with draft, is what you're saying? Or is it going
we're going to be kind of looking at doing, kind of some of the greatest hits, American craft brewers' greatest hits, but doing English spin and twist on them, and just kind of keeping, the idea of being balance centric, and just making beer that's really, just really good and drinkable. Yeah, so we're maintaining the cask thing, but we're just adding. We're not taking anything away. We're just adding to it.
Excellent. So on this beer, you use your dry hop citron on this beer?
Waimea.
What was the name of this one?
The Blender.
The Blender.
It hasn't been released yet. It's not.
What are you using citron?
Yeah.
All right. So. All right, we got it.
Okay, and then one last piece of errata. We're also sponsoring Doug King for Anything Session and British. So
the British are coming. The British are coming. All right, there you go. All right, there you go. Find McLeod's over in Van Nuys. All right, now for beer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So beer number 13 of the Grand Hydro tasting.
So we're not doing homebrew here.
Beanie, you are beer number 13.
Oh, this is the next one. Oh, is this another session ale?
Another session ale. It's a Beanie session ale.
Beanie and Alan are going to talk ad nauseum about this right now.
Okay, I'm going to let Alan talk.
Okay, so the first one they're going to be pouring is for the small cup. This is the non-barrel aged brownie wine that we did on Beanie System.
Well, there was a couple systems.
Couple systems going. We did 75-gallon batch.
The biggest homebrew I ever did.
So this is there was a big group of us that did it. We made sure to keep some of it off to the side. That's non-barrel aged. We had a.
So it's a non-barrel. Now, how is this different than the brownie Falcons brownie?
Wait a second. We're not supposed to sip this yet?
Not yet. Hang on to it because we're going to pour the barrel-aged version as well. We have more of that.
Guys, how is this different than the Falcons Firestone brownie wine?
This is the same recipe.
Same exact recipe, different system.
IBUs is around, is there 35, 40?
You guys want to talk about the history of a little bit brownie wine?
Let's see if we can break this.
What's the ABV of this?
So
that was 12 and a half.
Yeah.
Barrel aged about 14.
What do you got here?
These two did it.
Oh, okay.
So we brewed this back in March. Like I said, 75 gallons and starting gravity of 1118. And we got down, once we blended all three batches, 3 25-gallon batches together, probably got around 1026, 1027. So we're at about 12.5% on this non-barrel aged one. Once we put it in the rum barrel, it'll probably pick up another % or a little more. It was in the rum barrel. We just pulled it out of the barrel yesterday. So it's super fresh. It only been in the barrel about 5 months. We had a little leaks and just things here and there. We decided to go ahead and pull it out before the holidays. So hang on to your, I mean, you can take a tiny sip, but hang on to your non-barrel aged one so you can have it next to the barrel aged one.
Let me scoot out this way around you guys, please.
It's unfiltered.
Tom, get off that phone.
It was a hell of a brew day. We had 12 pounds of buckwheat honey into it. I don't know how many pounds of extract just to boost it up, which we put in the Firestone version as
Are you still
well.
with us? This is an unbelievable Grand Hydro session today. Huh? Unbelievable.
Half the meeting.
This is the best one ever. Huh? Seriously.
No, that's the non-barrel aged one, which actually ended up being really good. We're pretty happy with that one.
This is always the best meeting of the year. You know, always.
Not at 11 a.m.
Shut the fuck up.
11 a.m.
What time you get here? 2? 2:30? 3? You missed all of them.
I'm going to let you talk.
Right.
It's your brew. You
No,
can talk
you
about
missed
it, man.
It's not mine. We just pieced it together.
No, I'm not crazy. I just
Oh, you know what? I didn't get the non-barrel aged one. Jimbo,
Speedy, shut this fucker up.
So this one's the barrel age.
That's the barrel age. This is your barrel. We changed it.
every year for 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
John, your phone's running over.
Have a side by side.
It's a comparison. Was it? It's coming to your ass.
Yeah, I just got a new phone too, and all the sounds are like different than what I'm used to hearing some of these other
Oh man.
Ah,
That's good. That is good.
How much you got left of this stuff?
We just kegged it yesterday. We emptied the barrel.
I didn't get any. What's going on?
In the pictures is the non-barrel age.
The barrel was better than the original.
Oh, we hope so. It took a lot of work with the barrel.
The barrel was better than the original brand new one. I just had another one.
That is fucking good.
This crazy or what? Huh?
Even after all those other beers, this holds up really well.
You know, the unbarreled one is wonderful.
It's wonderful.
But there's nothing compared to this. This magic. I like this barrel better than the original one.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah, that's. I think this was better than the original one.
It's supposed to show the difference.
Fuck you.
Man, you're
What's the octane on this thing?
Thank you so much.
Glad we can share it.
Happy Hanukkah, all you guys! All right, go ahead now. Okay.
All right.
Bring us to order.
Okay, so we.
Listen to the brewers.
All right.
All right, shot.
Everyone's getting drunk.
Raise your voice.
All right, so we had a big crew, a nice big crew on this. We had Steve and Irene, we had Izzy, we had Ethan, we had Eric Blackwell, we had Beanie and myself, and am I missing anyone? Izzy. So it was a nice big long brew day, that's for sure. You know, we did the Beanie version. Taking mine.
13-hour brew day.
Yeah, nice big. Yeah,
we boiled for about 5 hours each batch.
Yeah.
Jim.
We did the typical Beanie, you know, caramelize the sides of the kettles and get all those sugars and.
So, like I said, the small one's going to be the non-barrel aged, and what you have in your glass is barrel aged. So.
And so, comparing to the Firestone version, Firestone aged theirs in 3 different barrels. They had the rum, the brandy, and the whiskey. This one is just a straight rum barrel. We ordered a 53-gallon rum barrel from the Caribbean. I'm not sure which distillery. So we filled that. Like I said, 5 months. Just pulled it out yesterday.
Perfect. What's that?
It's
estimated ABV?
What was that?
Estimated ABV?
The non-barrel aged is 12
and a half.
What was the OG and the FG on that?
118.
Oh, I'm talking to this guy.
118. Mine finished out at 1024.
Wow. Yeah, it was 3 25-gallon fermenters, and each one actually finished at different points. So then we blended them all together in the barrel.
Yeah.
So this is a bourbon or a rum barrel?
Rum barrel.
Rum barrel.
Just rum.
You know what kind of rum?
No.
American oak, obviously.
So,
I got that.
It was from the Caribbean.
It's American oak barrel.
Yeah. Here's the thing I'm noticing. I mean, one, just talking in comparison to the Firestone Walker commercial version that we brewed, this comes off a lot drier.
Yeah.
I
think a lot of that's water. Too.
Well, but I also think in a lot of ways this is closer to I think what the original envisioning of the beer was.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of that dry but big brown ale with a lot of rum character behind it, because the rum really stands out in this one. My fear is with the bourbon barrels that went into the commercial version. Those bourbon barrels provide so much vanillin and the bourbon character that sort of shifts around the perspective away from what I think you get out of just the rum barrel.
I talked to one of the cellar masters there, and she had tried them all separately, the different barrels. She said they all thought that the rum barrel was the sweetest one, but this ended up drying out pretty nice.
Well, but I mean, also we had the luxury of, hey, you guys had one barrel to take care of.
Yeah.
They had, a lot more.
Yeah.
They had 60 barrels.
Yeah. So I mean, this is one of the places where I think homebrewers can really excel in comparison to what can happen in the commercial world, just from the sheer fact of, since we don't have the commercial pressure, the time pressure, the overall volume pressure that a commercial brewery does. Pressure. And then, well, that's financial. Yeah. Unless your definition of financial equates to something else. But we have the luxury of being able to baby this sort of stuff in a way that a commercial brewery doesn't. So, I just saying to Steve, like, to me, the barrel-aged version that you guys have here with rum, this is much closer to what I had envisioned when we first started talking about it.
This is sexy as all hell.
Yeah, this will also screw up your day in a hard way.
Yeah. It's lawnmower beer.
Just like a 14 beer Grand Hydro session.
This is going to have to drive back to Pasadena.
I'm taking some time.
Set up sleeping bags.
All right.
Hey, can you talk about the barrel? Like the process of barreling, unbarreling, getting a barrel?
So the barrel that we ended up getting was from Rocky Mountain Barrel Company. And those guys are really great to work with. If you ever need a barrel, they're really cool. They've got so many, like, they've got tequila barrels, Madeira barrels, all kinds of different barrels. They did say the rum ones were the most difficult to work with, which I did discover. It came with a head bung. So Ethan came over and helped me barrel the beer, and we had to drill out. We probably should have aged it upright maybe with the actual head bung, because that head bung was really hard to see. I had a constant leak, small one, but a constant leak. I had a leak in my bunghole.
Yeah, it happens every day.
It wasn't plugged properly, so yeah. Over 5 months there was a constant leak. When we added the racked the beer into the barrel, Ethan had the idea. We had a candle. I guess there's. I think I've seen it in photos and stuff. You light the candle, and with the rising heat of the air, it keeps all the bugs out while you're filling the barrel. And, it was pretty easy process. And then yesterday when we racked out, we just got all the stuff from here at the shop. They've got stainless steel racking canes, drilled holes in a bung, CO2 right in, forced it in. Probably about 12 minutes a keg. It was a little bit slow to fill, but
it's better to go when you're pressure racking a barrel. It is much better to go slow than it is to go fast.
We cranked it up to about like 10 psi or something, and we had some hissing coming out of the seams and everything.
Yeah, okay. So
I know at the brewery though they go really high. What they're at there, like 18.
You guys have more. You guys have more experience. You have better care.
Their barrels
for
are certified.
Yeah, you have better care for barrels.
Certified.
You can do it. For me, like.
Tuesday chocolate rain.
You don't have to blow.
Yeah. Both. Yeah, because you get the angel share and it'll come. He was asking about why it boosts the ABV. You get the angel share, so it will concentrate, but then
you also extract liquor from the barrel.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
First thing is, angel share doesn't really concentrate because you lose both water and ethanol.
Well, we didn't add more beer. At one point, we ran out.
I know, but you lose, but you're losing water and ethanol out the oven, not just losing water. So a good portion of your pickup of ethanol is what's coming out of the wood. When the experiments I've seen where they've done it, depending upon how freshly dumped the barrel is, you're going to pick up at least 0.5%. If it's a freshly dumped barrel, that can be as much as 2%.
So to sanitize the inside, we basically swell the outside, pouring near boiling water on the outside to try to swell the barrel, and then to sanitize the inside, we took a handle of Bacardi white rum, dumped it in there, rolled it around, and actually at least 3/4 of it came back out. But,
And what'd you do with the rum?
To be fair,
Why does it come back out?
we sanitized it and it didn't absorb into the wood.
Oh, okay.
Well, the inside was.
And to be fair, Fletch is shaking his head over the word sanitize. You're not really going to sanitize with booze. You're just going to kind of knock down some of your population a little bit. It's really, in some ways, it's almost more of a flavoring step.
There isn't all that
What do you
much
think,
that's
Greg?
going to grow in a spirit barrel unless it's been
You need to make it
really
come. You need
neglected.
barrels.
If it's a good enough shape to use, there's not much growing in there.
Yeah.
Well, shipped from the Caribbean, wrapped in saran wrap, sitting on hot trucks.
Was it still wet?
Yeah, who knows?
The inside
What's the
looks.
price range for a barrel like that?
I believe is around shipping and everything around $375.
Not cheap.
What do you have?
Not cheap.
50?
It was a 53 gallon, I believe.
Most of your commercial barrels are going to be somewhere between 50 to 60 gallons.
You can get 5 barrel, 10 barrel, 15 barrels as well.
But those come with their own tank.
Yeah.
Most of the commercially used barrels that are used for like big productions are going to be 50 to 60 gallons, based on how old the barrel is, how much they've recoopered it, and all that sort of stuff.
If you're using chips instead of barrels and you soak the chips in whiskey or bourbon, is that more like 2%?
Well,
that you're gonna
no. Well, it depends. Are you pouring in the booze? Remember, it's all amount of surface area and the amount of soaking, right? One, never use chips. Chips are terrible. Use beans. Beans give you a much better. Yeah, the cubes beans they give you a much better character to my mind.
How long?
But I don't know, I mean, like I've never detected anything more than
5 months.
Like a 0.5% change from the beans that I've done.
Maybe another month or two.
Even though the beans that I've done have included American oak bourbon beans that have been soaking in my garage for 12 years.
You're saying that's like a 0.5%, right?
Yeah, it's like a 0.5% rate.
I always pour in the soap juice too.
Yeah, me too. But that's a big difference, right? But now I will also say if you soak your beans or your oak chips or oak cubes or whatever you want to call them for an extended period of time, I would highly advise not pouring that into the barrel, because if you've let it sit there for months or more, the booze, taste the booze. Oh
my God.
shit, is it tan. It is like mouth puckering awfulness.
Jim, you're getting to be more and more my best friend.
You got to put it in enough beer.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go like pouring like 2 ounces of cubes, 2 ounces of the bourbon in there. No, that's too much.
All right, so we should also talk about fermentation, because the fermentation on a beer this big wasn't as easy as it seems.
Yeah, this beer took 2 fermentation cycles, so I went ahead and we had the 3 fermenters going. Then I had to play musical fermenters of racking off one into carboys.
When he says one, he means racking off 25 gallons.
25 gallons into carboys, and then cleaning that fermenter, and then transferring the next beer on top of it and re-inoculating it. So I had to do that like 3 times through the process of that.
So you had to repitch everything 3 times?
Well, I had 3 kegs, so I had to repitch. I only did 1 transfer.
Okay.
But each one was like musical chairs with the fermenters.
Yeah.
Well, and next month we should probably have I think Kevin will bring in the Falcons clause if he remembers, because that was another massive fermentation project.
Yeah. And what yeast did you use?
It was English. No, like 1028.
Okay.
And then we had Izzy brought something like a slurry.
Well, he brought a P001 also.
P001.
So melange.
Yeah.
All right.
So the main thing is you want to have a big enough slurry when you're pitching to be able to handle that big a beer.
And we also wanted to go just a touch further on the barrel, so that it'd have that over the top barrel character, so you could age it and let that mellow out. But just timing and everything, it's pretty damn drinkable right now.
Well, what do you guys think?
Yeah, thoughts?
Yeah.
All right. We're not including this in the rundown because all you idiots would vote for this as the best beer.
Why not?
Because it is.
So, just based on the last the last rundown that we did, the winner of the most epically stupid Grand Hydro presentation ever. Seriously, this Grand Hydro presentation had more beers than some member meetings I've been to before the home meeting.
Well, we just have to cross out like.
Yeah. So everybody just remember extra potluck, please. Extra water. Be calm. Be sane. But the winner of the Grand Hydro so far, I would say, is the Scaldus Noel.
No way.
It had the most votes. It had the most votes. All right. So everybody, that's the Grand Hydro. Yeah. All right. For anybody who cares, and I don't know how much caring there is going on in this room at this point, we will do a session of troubleshooters when we break to do the potluck. Come find me inside. We'll have fun. And Internet, thank you for being here. We may or may not come back for the troubleshooters.
Get a job,
So long.
Internet.
2 hour campaign. That was a 2 hour campaign.